Hey everybody, Jeremy here. So today I'm going to be trying out a masticating juicer that I found over on Temu. And this juicer here costs around $71. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can find it over on Temu, and perhaps you'll be able to get it for even less because the prices tend to go up and down from time to time. So if you're looking for a juicer, this one is the type that's not as loud and violent as a centrifugal juicer that has the blade that spins around really fast. Instead, this one takes a slower, more methodical approach to juicing, and what attracted me to this particular one is because it has a rather large opening, about 80 millimeters, which they say you'll be able to fit whole fruits inside of it to juice it. Instead of having to cut everything, just be able to throw it right in there. I'm going to be trying that out and see how effective it is. So let's take a look at this box here. All different types of things that you can juice. It has 150 watts of power. And then over on the side, it tells you everything that you get in there. There's your hopper, your juicing jug. You're going to have your auger. You're going to have the plunger to get stuff in there in case it doesn't want to go down easily. And yeah, I'm going to show you exactly how this thing works. All right, so let me open it up. Let me get it set up. And then I also have a bunch of fruit and also some kale in the refrigerator, and I'm going to be juicing all those things, and we're going to see how effective this juicer actually is. And right before I take a look at all this stuff here, they do have a handy little questions and answers pamphlet that tells you some important information I think I should really go over really quickly. So as far as how long it can be used continuously, it says don't use it for more than 10 minutes constantly to avoid damaging the motor. And after you use it, give it the time to cool around 20 minutes before you use it again. And also, you are not supposed to put any parts into the dishwasher for cleaning. That is very interesting, and it does have a reverse function just in case something gets stuck or clogged. You'll be able to reverse it to clean out that clog. All right, so useful information to have there. So yeah, just be prepared when you turn it on. Now that I got everything out of the package, I'm going to show you how to put this together. Now, I don't know the names of all these parts, so I'm just going to call them what they look like, basically. So the first part is going to be this bucket part right here, and this is the chute where the pulp is going to come out of, and then this is the part where the juice is going to come out of. And you just lift up this flap to let the juice flow as you are juicing. Now, all you have to do is just put it down here on the base. It's not going to snap on, it's just going to rest. And you just look at the bottom, look at these two shapes, and you'll see that we have this one little small hole, and then we have two larger rectangular holes right here. So just line that up right here on the base, and that's going to tell you exactly the proper orientation. And once you get it down in there, it's a little bit snug. It's easy to take off, but it'll let you know that, hey, that's the way it's supposed to go. All right, cool. So the next thing that we are going to have is this filter part right here. And then the filter part just goes right down into the base, and then also there's also a couple of different holes you need to be aware of inside this thing as well. Well, there's one hole and then there's one little like nub. So you have this little opening right here, and then you have this little nub right here on the filter. So you look inside the bucket, look for where the little nub is, and then you just kind of line that up and just drop it right there into place, and then that is in there. And to secure it, we're going to need the auger right here. So it's going to go with the fat part going down. The skinny little nub is going to be facing up. So we'll just put it down in here. And when you put it into place, you have to push it down in order for it to sort of snap into place. There we go. Might have to give it a little bit of twist to make sure it aligns properly. So now that that's on, as you can see, like the rest of this is not coming up. It's not coming up. This next part is extremely important because if this part is not on correctly, the machine just won't turn on at all. So what you have to do is make sure that this little tab here is facing the back, sort of like this, towards the power buttons on the machine. If you don't have it that way, it will not turn on. So just put this over the rest of the unit, kind of give it like a little, like a little twist, make sure that it's aligned. And then when you do, you have to turn it. Give it a little push as well, because basically it has to go like under this plastic into a groove. So give it a little bit of push and turn it. And make sure that, again, that tab is facing these power buttons here. And then you plug it in, and then your options are on and then reverse. and that's how that works. Now, if you don't do it that way, it's not going to work. So let's say that you do it backwards. Let's say that you have this tab facing like you, and then you decide to put it on, and then you give it a twist, thinking that it's on. Not going to work. Will not work. And you will think that the machine is broken and that you've wasted your money, but in fact, you just have to make sure that it is lined up properly. It's a little bit fiddly, but once you get it, it works. So who's ready for some juicing? I know I am. Now, first of all, I wanted to see if my apples would actually fit inside of this. Turns out it did. But as you can also see, there's really no way for me to get this apple out of here. So we are committed. This is a whole pink lady apple. It's going to be the first thing that goes into this juicer. Now, this is how it closes. It has a switch right here. It's a little bit flimsy, honestly. But what you do is you push it past this switch, and then you just move it to the locking position, and when you let it go, then that'll make sure that it does not go up higher. But when you unlock it, it can go up completely, just like this. All right, so we got an apple all the way in there, so let's get started. 3, 2, 1, on. So that auger is doing its thing, and this, well, I thought I was going to have to use this, but never mind. Yep, that was a whole freaking apple, and it just ground it all up. Now you can probably see in the back, that's where the pulp is coming out, and then this is where the juice is gathering. And now I'm just going to throw an orange in here. Another apple. I cut this apple in half. I'll tell you why in a moment. Here is a whole orange. And look at that juice level starting to rise. So that's where we open up this. Oh, look at that force. Maybe bring it back a little bit. All that juice starts to pour right out. All right, let's keep on going. Now for some vegetables, I got some kale. Pro tip, if you're using something like leafy greens or kale, don't put it in this part. Instead, put it in the opening over on the right side. That's going to give it direct access to the auger. And then you can use this to push it down if you need some help. And if it's really struggling, then just add a little bit of lubrication to it with like an orange or something, you know, that's going to help it to go down. All right, so since this orange has found like the perfect position to not get juiced, I'm just going to help it out a little bit here. So I'm just going to loosen this up, and we can see we also have a bit of apple that also did not get squozen through. So I am going to just put this back on. Let's try this again. With the orange. And with the apple. Let's turn it off. Let's get the remaining juice out of here. All right, and that's that. Now let's take a look at the damage. So over here is like the poop chute, and this is where all the different pulp goes. And just to get a sense of how effective everything is, let me just see if I can give this a bit of a squeeze to see how much juice we can get out of here. You see I'm squeezing this pretty hard. I haven't seen a single drop come out of this pulp yet, and I'm squeezing the devil out of this thing. I know some people like to run the pulp through the machine a second time just to make sure they get all of the nutrients. Oh, there's some drippage, but as you can see here, after all that squeezing, that's still fairly dry pulp, so that is a good thing. Here's a look at the filter with all the gunk and stuff on the inside. And take this out. The remaining pulp here, we'll just put this in the basket and then we'll just clean this out a little bit later. And then this is the screen that everything gets squozen through, and they do provide you with this little toothbrush here so that you can more easily clean that fine mesh. And then finally, let's take a look at this bucket here. You know, a lot of foam in there, something that you can just easily rinse out in the sink. So now I'm going to get all this cleaned up. I'm going to taste some of this juice, and then I'm going to tell you some things that I think you should and shouldn't do with this particular juicer. But as you can see, the results were pretty good. This is how much juice I got out of the apples and oranges and kale that I used. And this is a wide mouth mason jar, and I say that this is about halfway, maybe about 55%. And of course, it's darn tasty. All right, so now let me tell you some things I think you should and shouldn't do with this juicer. Now, as you saw, it juices pretty good, and I had a really fun time doing it. But we also have to temper the expectations because we're talking about a juicer that you can get for between $50 and $70 on Temu. Now, that is a really low price for a masticating juicer, especially one that can accept whole fruits. And because of that, I think that it's important to do what you can to lessen the amount of stress that this juicer is going to be put under. For example, I used a whole apple as the first thing that I juiced, and that was cool. I was able to stand in amazement, but I am not going to be constantly doing that going forward. Instead, I'm going to be cutting the apples in half, even coring the apple in order to make the machine work less hard. And when it comes to other harder fruits and vegetables like carrots, if it's a really thick carrot, especially if it's a big and thick carrot, maybe consider cutting it into a couple pieces or a few pieces just to make it easier. And when it comes to ginger, I don't really know about ginger because that is really, really hard. And it might be a little bit too much for a machine like this, but you know, proceed at your own caution. As far as the build quality goes, it's okay. There are some parts on it that feel a little bit flimsy. In particular, this little switch right here that keeps this flap locked. And it's really just a small piece of plastic that sort of just gets in the way to keep it from moving up. And this switch does feel a little bit flimsy. And then over on the side of the machine, I can see that this little lid part here is not completely flush on the right side. It's sticking up a little bit and I can't quite push it down all the way. But at the same time, even if this, I don't want it to break, but even if it did, it wouldn't be the end of the world because it'll just provide a larger opening to put your fruits and vegetables and stuff into, because we just have this for like the apples and stuff to just kind of feed it through this spot. And then you have this little smaller spot over here, and that's where you have to just stuff everything else down in there. And I would like a wider opening to just put everything into, so you don't have to keep alternating between them. And it's also very important to look at the instructions because it says do not put any part of this inside of the dishwasher. Maybe you can get away with the buckets since these are just plastic, you know, but when it comes to things on the machine, don't put any part of it in the dishwasher. Maybe it's because the plastic is not designed to withstand so much heat. There are some parts on here that have little screws attached to them. So always make sure that you wash this by hand. And the easiest way to wash it is to wash it as soon as you're finished juicing. That's when everything's going to be loose and a lot more easier to clean. Do not let it sit, because if you do, then that's where all those things are going to get stuck and they're going to get caught in cracks and crevices. And then you can have problems with mold, and nobody wants that. So clean it as soon as you're done with it, even before you start drinking the juice. Clean it immediately. So based off my experience with this machine, I really do like it. And I like the fact that I can do less work in order to juice things. I do have a masticating juicer already, but it's smaller. I have to cut things into smaller pieces. But with this, the process is a lot faster. And I also like seeing the juice just kind of flow out of this little spout here. That is like probably my favorite part. But remember, if you're interested in this juicer, check the link down in the description so that you can find it on Temu, and then you can purchase it from there if you are so inclined. So Thank you all so much for watching, and if you want to see more reviews like this, especially things that come from Temu, be sure to subscribe so that you can catch the next videos that come up about those things. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you next time.